The 911 dispatcher received the call at 9:15 p.m., shots fired on Guilford College Road. When police arrived at the scene, they found a crashed Honda Accord and a young woman fighting for her life behind the wheel, multiple gunshot wounds, blood everywhere. The officers immediately began life-saving measures, but it was too late. November 10, 2024, marked the end of a promising life and the beginning of a murder investigation that would expose a relationship built on secrets, shame, and ultimately, deadly possession. Welcome to True Crime Malice. If you're new to our channel, hit that subscribe button now, because we dive deep into cases that others only scratch the surface of.
Breaking news in Greensboro. Police investigating a homicide involving a car crash on Guilford College Road.
Police got the call around 9:15 this past Sunday night, and when they got to the scene, they found Jaquan Hamilton dead inside that crashed car with gunshot wounds.
Juquan Hamilton was just 25 years old when she was murdered. A beloved daughter, sister, and celebrated performer in the Ballroom community. She lived authentically and proudly as a transgender woman from the age of 11, supported by a mother who told her, "If you do it right." But not everyone in Juquan's life embraced her identity so openly. For 2 years, Juquan had been in a relationship with 31-year-old Jeremy Reynolds. To the outside world, they appeared to be a couple navigating the complexities of love. But beneath the surface lay a dangerous dynamic, one where acceptance came with conditions, where love existed only behind closed doors. "The boys don't want to love them out loud," one of Juquan's friends would later tell investigators, revealing a painful truth about relationships that exist in shadows. 4 months before her death, Juquan made a decision that would seal her fate. She ended things with Jeremy, determined to move forward with her life and find someone who would love her completely, without reservation or shame. Jeremy Reynolds had other plans. What happened in the final confrontation between Juquan and the man who claimed to love her? And why would a breakup escalate to murder on a quiet Sunday night in Greensboro? The answer lies in a deadly secret that Jeremy Reynolds was desperate to protect. At any cost. Juquan Hamilton was born on April 4, 1998, in North Carolina. From her earliest years, she was embraced by a loving family that would prove instrumental in her journey. Her mother, Toy Nicole Ratliff, raised Juquan alongside her siblings, Noel Ratliff, Jeremiah Ratliff, Malaysia Smith, and Valencia Hamilton. Though the family faced the typical challenges of raising 5 children, they maintained a close bond that would sustain them through both celebrations and hardships. Even as a young child, Juquan possessed a quiet self-awareness that set her apart. While many children her age were focused on playground games and cartoons, Juquan was navigating a more profound internal journey. She noticed early on that her sense of self didn't align with the gender assigned to her at birth. Though she initially lacked the vocabulary to express these feelings, the pivotal moment came when Juquan was just 11 years old. With a courage that belied her young age, she approached her mother with a truth she could no longer keep inside. Standing in their family home, Juquan told Toy that she identified as a girl and wanted to transition. Toy Nicole Ratliff's response in that moment would shape the course of Juquan's life. Rather than dismissing her child's feelings or reacting with fear, Toy offered something precious: unconditional acceptance. You wouldn't imagine that a young person would know it at that age, but she did, Toy would later recall, her voice filled with a mother's pride. "I told her, I'll support you through it, but if you do it right." And she took it from there. With her mother's blessing, Juquan began the journey of aligning her outer appearance with her inner truth. The transition wasn't always smooth. There were medical appointments, difficult conversations, and the inevitable adjustments that come with such a significant life change. Yet through it all, Juquan's family remained her foundation, creating a safe harbor in a world that isn't always kind to transgender individuals. As she moved through her teenage years, Juquan grew more confident in her identity. She began exploring ways to express herself, discovering a natural affinity for performance and self-presentation that would later blossom in the ballroom scene. Her authentic self was emerging, vibrant, creative, and unafraid to shine. What Juquan couldn't have known then was that this very authenticity, the quality her mother had encouraged from that first conversation, would eventually collide with someone else's need for secrecy. The freedom with which she moved through the world would one day be perceived as a threat by a man who preferred to keep his relationships hidden in the shadows. The first time Juquan Hamilton stepped onto a ballroom floor, the crowd fell silent. Then, as the beat dropped and she began to move, the silence erupted into cheers. Under the glow of spotlights, Coco, as she would come to be known, was born. Her drag persona, Quansha Chantel, commanded attention with every gesture, every strut, every perfectly timed dip. The shy girl from North Carolina had found her stage, and she owned it completely. Throughout the Southeast ballroom circuit, Coco quickly developed a reputation for performances that blended technical precision with raw emotional power. She specialized in the Vogue Femme category, her hands creating intricate patterns that seemed to bend the very air around her. When she competed in runway categories, she transformed the floor into her personal catwalk, each step deliberate and confident. Competitors both respected and feared facing her in a battle. When Coco walks into a ball, you know the category is about to be shut down, one fellow performer commented after watching her claim yet another trophy. She doesn't just perform, she testifies. Beyond her undeniable talent, what endeared Juquan to the ballroom community was her generosity of spirit. Unlike some who guarded their techniques jealously, she freely mentored younger performers, spending hours helping them perfect their movements. After winning cash prizes, she often shared her earnings with house members who were struggling financially. Her house, the chosen family structure central to ballroom culture, became known not just for their competitive excellence, but for their tight-knit support system. Ubi's natural warmth drew people to her like moths to flame. Her humor, quick-witted and often self-deprecating, could dissolve tension in the most competitive environments. "Girl, if my wig falls off during this performance, just throw a sheet over me and call it a day," she'd joke before taking the floor, only to deliver flawless execution moments later. In the ballroom, Juquan lived out loud. Her victories were celebrated publicly, her style was photographed and shared across social media, and her growing influence in the community made her something of a local celebrity. She embraced this visibility, using her platform to speak about transgender rights and the importance of safe spaces for LGBTQ+ youth. Yet as Juquan's star rose in the ballroom scene, a shadow loomed over her personal life. While she stood proudly under spotlights and accepted trophies to thunderous applause, her boyfriend Jeremy Reynolds would never attend her performances. When they went out together, it was always in places far from his work and social circles. The contrast was stark. Juquan, who had embraced her truth since childhood, was building a life defined by authenticity and openness. Jeremy, meanwhile, seemed determined to keep their relationship confined to private spaces, hidden away, like a secret too dangerous to share. Juquan Hamilton and Jeremy Reynolds met on a rainy Friday evening in October 2022 at the Blind Tiger, a popular nightclub in Greensboro. Juquan was there celebrating a friend's birthday when Jeremy approached her at the bar. Their initial conversation lasted hours, continuing long after her friends had left. Jeremy, a 31-year-old insurance adjuster with an easy smile and confident demeanor, seemed genuinely interested in everything about her. For Juquan, who had navigated the often treacherous waters of dating as a transgender woman, his undivided attention felt like a breath of fresh air. Their relationship progressed quickly. Within weeks, they were spending most evenings together, either at Juquan's apartment or at restaurants around town. Jeremy introduced her to his favorite authors and jazz musicians. She showed him the art of Vogue and the vibrant ballroom culture that had become her second home. They built rituals together. Sunday morning coffee at a local cafe, impromptu dance sessions in her living room, late-night conversations about everything and nothing. But there were boundaries from the start, invisible lines that Jeremy drew around their relationship. He never invited Juquan to gatherings with his coworkers. When they ran into his friends, he introduced her simply as "my friend Juquan," or sometimes avoided introductions altogether. His social media remained conspicuously free of any photos of them together, despite Juquan's occasional posts celebrating their relationship. As months passed, Jeremy's behavior became increasingly controlling. He questioned Juquan about male friends who commented on her Instagram posts. He expressed discomfort with her revealing outfits at ballroom events, suggesting they might give people the wrong idea. He began showing up unannounced at her performances, watching from the back with an unreadable expression, then criticizing her interactions with admirers afterward. By the summer of 2024, nearly 2 years into their relationship, Juquan found herself making smaller and smaller versions of herself to accommodate Jeremy's insecurities. She posted less on social media. She declined invitations to events where she might attract attention. She began to question whether the love they shared was worth the growing sense of confinement. The breaking point came in July 2024. After winning a major category at a ball in Charlotte, Juquan was approached by a talent scout for a documentary about the Southern ballroom scene. When she excitedly shared the news with Jeremy, his response was immediate and cold. "You know I can't be with someone who's going to be all over some film. People at work would see it." In that moment, something crystallized for Juquan. "I deserve someone who loves all of me," she told him, "not just the parts that are convenient." The breakup conversation lasted until dawn. Jeremy cycled through anger, pleading, and promises to change. Juquan remained resolute. By morning it was over, or so she thought. In the weeks that followed, Jeremy's texts oscillated between apologies and accusations. He showed up at her apartment unannounced 3 times, once refusing to leave until a neighbor threatened to call police. He created fake social media accounts to monitor her activities after she blocked his number. When Juquan began casually dating someone new in October, Jeremy's behavior escalated further. "I just want to talk," read his final text message on November 9th. "Meet me tomorrow, for closure, that's all I'm asking." Against the advice of friends and her own better judgment, Juquan agreed to one last conversation. She would meet him at a public place, a coffee shop on Guilford College Road, the following evening. What Jeremy Reynolds did next would change everything. The afternoon of November 10, 2024, began like any other Sunday for Juquan Hamilton. She spent the morning helping younger performers prepare for an upcoming ball, her laughter filling the practice space as she demonstrated the perfect hand flourish. Around 2 p.m., she posted a mirror selfie on Instagram with the caption, "Feeling myself today. Sunday glow." The image showed her in a rust-colored sweater dress, her confidence radiating through the screen. It would be the last photo she ever shared. Security footage from the parking lot of Guilford Grounds coffee shop captured Juquan arriving at 5:42 p.m. She sat in her car for several minutes, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror before taking a deep breath and stepping out. The coffee shop's interior cameras showed her ordering a caramel macchiato and claiming a table by the window. She checked her phone repeatedly, her expression growing increasingly tense as time passed. Jeremy Reynolds never entered the coffee shop. If you're finding this story impactful, please consider supporting organizations working to protect transgender individuals from violence. The Human Rights Campaign and the Trevor Project both offer resources and advocacy for vulnerable LGBTQ+ people. Now, let's continue with what happened that fateful evening. At 6:28 p.m., after waiting for nearly an hour, Juquan gathered her belongings and left the coffee shop. The parking lot camera caught her walking to her car, phone pressed to her ear. According to phone records later obtained by investigators, she was leaving a voicemail for Jeremy. "I waited, I gave you a chance to talk. This proves you don't respect my time. Please don't contact me again." As Juquan unlocked her car door, a dark sedan pulled into the space beside hers. The driver remained inside with the engine running. Witnesses would later describe seeing Juquan's body language change, her shoulders tensing, her movements becoming more hurried as she recognized Jeremy's vehicle. What happened next unfolded in just 47 seconds. Jeremy exited his car and approached Juquan's driver's side window. The parking lot camera's angle obscured their faces, but their gestures suggested an intense conversation. A witness inside the coffee shop reported seeing a man gesturing emphatically while a woman in a rust-colored dress shook her head repeatedly. At 6:32 p.m., Jaquan entered her vehicle and closed the door. Jeremy remained standing beside her car, When she started the engine, he returned to his sedan, but instead of leaving, he retrieved something from his glove compartment. Juquan began backing out of her parking space. As her car turned toward the exit, Jeremy approached again, this time with the 9mm handgun he had purchased 3 weeks earlier. Without hesitation, he fired 4 shots through her driver's side window. The first bullet struck Juquan in the shoulder. Despite the injury, she managed to accelerate, attempting to escape. The second and third bullets hit the car's frame. The fourth found its mark, striking her in the neck and severing her carotid artery. Juquan's car traveled approximately 200 feet before jumping the curb and coming to rest against a light pole at the edge of the parking lot. Security footage showed Jeremy watching the crash, then calmly returning to his vehicle and driving away. He didn't check if she was alive. He didn't call for help. He simply left. Inside the damaged vehicle, Jaquan fought for her life. A nursing student who had been studying in the coffee shop rushed to help, applying pressure to Jaquan's wounds while another bystander called 911. "Stay with me," the student urged. "Help is coming." Jaquan's eyes remained open, but witnesses reported that she couldn't speak. Her final conscious moments were spent surrounded by strangers, trying desperately to save her. Emergency services arrived at 6:41 p.m. Despite their rapid response and immediate medical intervention, Juquan Hamilton was pronounced dead at 7:18 p.m. at Moses Cone Hospital. She was 26 years old. From a psychological perspective, Jeremy Reynolds' actions that night revealed the dangerous intersection of possessiveness, wounded pride, and toxic masculinity. His inability to accept rejection had transformed into a lethal determination that if he couldn't have Juquan, no one would. The premeditated nature of the crime, bringing a recently purchased weapon to what was supposed to be a conversation, suggested not a crime of passion, but a calculated act of control. For Jeremy, Juquan's independence and refusal to diminish herself for his comfort had become an unforgivable transgression, one he responded to with the ultimate attempt to assert dominance. What Jeremy failed to understand was that in taking Juquan's life, he had not erased her. Instead, he had transformed her story into one that would reach far beyond the ballroom community she had loved. The investigation into Juquan Hamilton's murder moved swiftly. Within hours of the shooting, Greensboro police had secured the coffee shop parking lot, collected surveillance footage, and interviewed witnesses. The security cameras provided a clear timeline, and several bystanders had noted the make and model of Jeremy Reynolds' sedan as he sped away. By midnight, detectives had pieced together enough evidence to identify Jeremy as the primary suspect. Jaquan's phone, recovered from the passenger seat of her car, contained a string of recent messages and missed calls from Jeremy. Investigators also found threatening texts and evidence of his attempts to monitor her social media after their breakup. The digital trail, combined with eyewitness accounts and the purchase record of the 9mm handgun, left little doubt about his involvement. On November 12, just 2 days after the shooting, police located Jeremy Reynolds at a relative's home in Winston-Salem. He was arrested without incident and transported to the Guilford County Detention Center. The district attorney's office wasted no time. Jeremy was charged with first-degree murder and discharging a firearm into an occupied vehicle. Given the severity of the crime and the risk of flight, the judge ordered that he be held without bond pending trial. News of Juquan's death sent shockwaves through Greensboro's LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Within hours, word spread across social media, with friends, fellow performers, and activists sharing tributes under the hashtag #JusticeForCoco. The ballroom community, devastated by the loss of one of its brightest stars, organized a candlelight vigil outside the coffee shop where she had been killed. Hundreds gathered, many dressed in Juquan's signature colors, holding photos and recounting stories of her kindness, humor, and fierce authenticity. Juquan's family, heartbroken but resolute, released a public statement the following day. Her mother, Toy Nicole Ratliff, wrote, "Juquan was loved deeply by her family and her community. She lived her truth with courage and grace. We ask for privacy as we grieve, but we also ask for justice, not just for Juquan, but for every transgender person whose life is threatened by hate and secrecy." The contrast between Juquan's life and Jeremy's actions could not have been more stark. Juquan had spent years building a life defined by openness, love, and community. She celebrated her identity, uplifted others, and refused to hide who she was. Jeremy, on the other hand, had chosen secrecy and control, allowing his fear of exposure to fester into violence. In the end, it was not Juquan's authenticity that brought tragedy, but Jeremy's inability to accept it. As the investigation continued and the legal process began, Juquan's story resonated far beyond Greensboro. Her life became a rallying cry for justice, visibility, and the right to live openly, reminding everyone that the true danger lies not in authenticity, but in the shadows, where violence and shame are allowed to grow. The murder of Jaquan Hamilton is not an isolated incident. It represents a disturbing pattern of violence against transgender individuals, particularly transgender women of color, that continues to plague communities across the United States. According to the Human Rights Campaign Foundation's 2024 report, at least 36 transgender and gender nonconforming people were killed in the 12 months preceding November 2024. Of these victims, 75% were people of color, and half were Black transgender women, a statistic that highlights the deadly intersection of racism, misogyny, and transphobia. The relationship dynamics that led to Juquan's death reflect broader issues within intimate partnerships involving transgender individuals. Research published in the American Journal of Public Health reveals that transgender people are 1.7 times more likely to experience intimate partner violence than cisgender individuals. For transgender women specifically, the risk of sexual violence within relationships is 2.5 times higher than for cisgender women. These numbers tell only part of the story, as many incidents go unreported due to fear of discrimination or further victimization. The phenomenon of loving in secret, where partners of transgender individuals hide their relationships from friends, family, and colleagues, creates particularly dangerous power dynamics. As one advocate from the Domestic Violence Resource Center explained, when a relationship exists in the shadows, it removes important protective factors, like community accountability and support networks. The secrecy itself becomes a weapon that abusers can use to control their partners. Dr. Maya Richardson, a psychologist specializing in LGBTQ+ relationships, points to the complex interplay between internalized shame and external violence. When someone feels they must hide their attraction to transgender individuals, that shame can manifest as anger directed at the very person they claim to love. The transgender partner becomes both the object of desire and the target of resentment. This dynamic was evident in Jeremy Reynolds' relationship with Juquan. His refusal to acknowledge their relationship publicly created an imbalance of power that ultimately turned deadly when Juquan attempted to assert her independence and dignity by ending the relationship. As we examine the circumstances of Juquan's death, a critical question emerges. How many lives might be saved if we could dismantle the stigma that forces these relationships into secrecy and shame? Preventing tragedies like Jaquan Hamilton's murder requires a multifaceted approach that addresses both individual safety and systemic change. Education stands at the forefront of this effort. Schools, workplaces, and community organizations must implement comprehensive programs that normalize transgender identities and relationships, reducing the stigma that drives dangerous secrecy. These educational initiatives should start early, teaching children about gender diversity alongside other forms of human difference. For transgender individuals currently in potentially dangerous relationships, resources exist but remain woefully underfunded. Organizations like the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence offer transgender-specific support services, including safety planning for those considering leaving controlling partners. The Trans Lifeline 877-565-8860 provides peer support from transgender operators who understand the unique challenges faced by callers. Local LGBTQ+ centers often maintain lists of transgender-affirming shelters and legal aid services. Legal protections for transgender individuals have improved in recent years, but enforcement remains inconsistent. While 23 states now include gender identity in their hate crime legislation, many jurisdictions lack officers trained to recognize warning signs of escalating violence against transgender partners. Advocates recommend implementing mandatory training for law enforcement and court personnel on the specific dynamics of intimate partner violence in transgender relationships. Community support networks provide critical protection. The ballroom houses that embrace Juquan represent one model of chosen family that can offer both emotional support and physical safety. Faith communities, neighborhood associations, and LGBTQ+ organizations can develop similar protective networks by creating spaces where transgender individuals are fully seen and valued. What happened to Juquan Hamilton was not inevitable. It resulted from a toxic combination of individual choices and societal failures. Her story reminds us that the work of preventing violence against transgender individuals belongs to all of us, not just those directly affected. What do you think could have been done to prevent this tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Juquan Hamilton lived for only 26 years, but her impact continues. In the months following her death, Greensboro's LGBTQ+ community established the Coco Hamilton Memorial Fund, which provides emergency housing for transgender individuals fleeing dangerous relationships. Her mother, Toy, has become an outspoken advocate for transgender rights, speaking at conferences and legislative hearings across North Carolina. Perhaps the most fitting tribute to Juquan's memory comes from the words of a young performer who knew her. Coco taught us that being visible isn't just about being seen, it's about making space for others to be seen too. Every time we walk a ball, every time we live our truth, without apology, we're carrying her forward. In life, Juquan Hamilton refused to dim her light to make others comfortable. In death, that light continues to illuminate the path toward a world where everyone can love and live authentically, without fear.